From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has been sworn in for a second term following his re-election in the polls back in February. He was inaugurated on Wednesday in the capital, Abuja, in front of thousands of his supporters. Dealing with an economic slowdown and rising ethnic violence in Nigeria will be some of the challenges to face in his second term as leader of Africa's largest economy.
We are here to witness the inauguration of Mr. President for the second tenure. Of course, you are aware that we are now talking of next level, which means we've finished the first level of the administration. We are now moving into the era of consolidation. So our expectation is that Mr. President will now focus more on the issue of security, employment, and agriculture.
To talk about this, we are joined by Nigerian political analyst and writer Socrates Mbamalu. Thank you for joining us, Socrates.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us, what are the key issues that President Buhari will have to resolve in this second term?
One of the key issues will be security. The other would be unemployment issues. Education too is involved. And these are actually some of the key issues that Buhari has to tackle that have been part of the challenges his government has been facing.
So it seems that Buhari's critics have accused him, for example, of failing to defeat Boko Haram as he promised during his first term. So what can he do now that is different?
I don't really know what Buhari can do now that is different, except really taking charge. Because one of the major reasons why he was elected in 2015 was based on the promise of defeating Boko Haram. And many Nigerians actually voted for him based on the fact that he was a former military general, and they expected that he would take the cause and the fight seriously. But for the past 4 years, there has been no difference really as compared to the past president, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and things seem to actually have deteriorated. There has been no change in service chiefs, no change in army command structure. The same chief of army staff is still the same person. The same chief of defense staff is still the same person. There has been nothing concrete that Nigerians have seen that Buhari has done about the Boko Haram issue. There have also been issues of soldiers not being paid enough, among other things. So there's really a lot that Buhari must do to change that situation.
And also from the reports during the election, we saw that it was the voting was strongly divided, either by regions, by ethnic groups, and this seems to be showing a divided country. What can Buhari do to now unite the nation?
Basically, he has to show that, as he said in his last presidential inauguration, which was in 2015, that he belongs to everybody and he belongs to no one. He has to really show that he actually belongs to everybody and belongs to no one by giving fair appointments, not just appointing people from his own area or from his own ethnic group. He has to make statements that are encompassing, statements that show that he's carrying each and every Nigerian along. He has to stop making divisive statements like he has done in the past, which has shown that basically put the country in a lot of division. The way sometimes other parts of the country have probably experienced either the force of the army being used on them, like in the southeastern part of Nigeria. He has to work on that so it doesn't look like he is dividing the nation.
And another issue also affecting several countries is the issue of corruption. What has he said about corruption? Will he fight it strongly, or has he been accused, for example, as other presidents in the region?
You know, one of the things that actually put Buhari in power was basically his integrity and the expected toughness of fighting corruption. But basically, almost everyone in Buhari's cabinet last year, most Nigerians will tell you they would doubt their credibility when it comes to corruption, most of them. And yet these were the same people that were in the same shoes as Buhari, that were in the same government with Buhari. So there was nothing to really show that, okay, he fought corruption. It seems to be something more of a mouthpiece thing. He just seems to say it and not to follow it with actions. And that has been the situation with many Nigerian presidents. And he has to just follow it more with action, more political power, more political will.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Socrates, for your time and for explaining politics in Nigeria.
Thank you for having me.
That was Socrates Mbamalu from Nigeria, political analyst on this issue. Now we go to other stories. Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Niger President Muhammadu Buhari in Beijing on Tuesday. Xi highlighted the mutual trust as they grow in bilateral cooperation. He said his country is ready to implement the plans discussed at the Beijing Summit on China-Africa Cooperation. Buhari praised China's commitment to peaceful coexistence and congratulated the host country on the 70th anniversary of its founding, pointing to the successes achieved under the leadership of the Communist Party of China. Demonstrators in Sudan have gathered for the last day of a two-day protest to push for a civilian government. Hundreds of protesters assembled outside the central bank in Khartoum for a general strike in a bid to step up pressure on the military to hand power to a civilian administration. Talks between the Transitional Military Council and the Freedom and Change Forces are at a standstill despite weeks of negotiations.
Currently, and among the goals of the strike, is to have the military council hand over power to 100% civilian government in order to re-establish governmental branches and state structures, as well as reform the structure of banks, God willing.
It's been 2 months since Cyclone Idai caused serious damages in Mozambique, with survivors still struggling to rebuild their lives. Rural communities are trying to rehabilitate farmlands and reboot food production in a country where 80% of the population depends on agriculture. Our correspondent Andre Vieira went to see how the recovery is progressing, and this is the first of his series of reports.
From overhead, it is still possible to see the damage caused in the city of Beira, in the Sofala province. On the evening of March 14th, Idai made landfall over the central region, producing torrential rains, floods and strong winds, which left about 600 people dead. It is an experience residents of Beira will never forget.
The storm made landfall at around 7 p.m. The wind speed rapidly intensified. Just 1 hour later, the storm's intensity grew. By 9 p.m., the roof of the bank was blown off. It just flew away, as if lifted by giant hands. Then the cyclone struck with deadly force.
The true scale of devastation and flooding still lingers in Beira's popular tourist area. We toured the city and the rickshaw driven by Armando Jose. He has seen the damage firsthand. That's because this city is his home. But he's become a statistic, one of the nearly 87,000 displaced. He now shares a 15 square meter flat with the rest of his family.
For me, being the only man in the house, it's difficult to start all over again. It's like starting all over from scratch without knowing how to.
Moving away from the coast and getting closer inland, you can see that roadways are still damaged and many people still live in shelters or improvised housing. About 180 miles away from Beira is Chibabuaba. The community heavily relies on agriculture for its survival. But the cyclone has destroyed roadways, homes, crops and their lives.
On that day, I was inside my house. Suddenly it came crashing down on me, and I had to run out. When I managed to get outside, I saw trees and corn crops obliterated. What's even worse is that after the storm was over, we all had to battle malaria and other illnesses.
The cyclones have deepened Mozambique's food crisis. Many farmers are left with nothing but hope.
If the rain comes, the first thing we're going to do is plant. That's the basis of agriculture, and that's the only way we can start afresh.
For this country that fought until 1975 for its independence from Portugal, new challenges arise after Idai. While the immediate future is concerning, the people of Mozambique are determined to rebuild their communities and reclaim their lives.
We're taking a short break now. Don't go away.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Trade unions in Argentina are holding a 24-hour general strike to protest against the economic and social policies of President Mauricio Macri. The strike was called by the General Workers' Union and immediately supported by the other main trade union federations, as well as by other social movements and leftist parties. The opposition has built a strong bloc to demand solutions to the current economic crisis, which hits the working class and the poor the hardest. But several people were injured when the police used pepper spray and rubber bullets to disperse protesters. A group of more than 4,000 demonstrators had gathered at Pueyrredón Bridge to block one of the access roads into Buenos Aires. They remained there until 11 in the morning and then marched to the obelisk monument in the center of the capital. Our correspondent Edgardo Esteban has more from Buenos Aires.
This general strike called by the Trade Union Federation is having a major impact here. There are no buses running, no flights. Schools, hospitals and banks are closed, and this shows the level of discontent among workers with the government's economic policies. The day began with the roads leading into the capital being blocked. There were marches in the center of the city called by the left parties and social movements to demand a solution to the hardships people are facing. Added to this, there were 3,000 soup kitchens set up around the country, handing out a meal to the most vulnerable sectors of the population. The trade union federations have made clear they will continue to take actions like this until the government comes up with a response to this very critical economic situation that the people of Argentina are facing.
José Edgardo Esteban from Argentina. Now we go to Honduras. Teachers continue to demand that the government stop the privatization of the health and education sectors. Medical union and other educational movements demand the government remove articles in a law that would reform the budget for such sectors. Health and education workers say that this law brings dismissals and gives employers the power to contract people in an irregular or illegal way. Workers say that if the government doesn't hear their claims, they will continue striking. And health workers are also protesting now in Paraguay to demand better conditions. Nurses marched in the capital Asunción to put pressure on the government to improve their pay and implement the nursing law, which regulates the profession. They are also opposing the economic policies of President Mario Abdo Benítez, which they say have eroded living standards and threatened their pension rights.
We have come from the local health council in San Pedro. The situation is very bad there because the pay is so low. That's why we are asking for a proper contract with the Ministry of Health, so that we can do much more to help our community and our patients.
Let's hear from our correspondent Osvaldo Sayas, who was at the protest.
We're here at the march called by the Nurses Association of Paraguay. They're protesting here in front of the Ministry of Health, and from here they're marching to the Ministry of Finance to demand that the law on nursing be respected. We talked to the leaders and they explained to us that many nurses are unemployed while others are underemployed at the so-called local health councils, where they earn just half the minimum wage. They say this is a total contradiction because at the same time there is a lack of nurses in many public hospitals, and many of the nurses there are overloaded with the number of patients they have to look after. They say the nursing law was adopted 12 years ago, but the government still hasn't applied it fully. That's why they want to meet with the authorities, and they plan to continue their protests.
Osvaldo Sayas from Paraguay. Now, a court in Ecuador is set to hear the bail application of Swedish software developer Ola Bini, who is facing spying charges. Our correspondent Denise Herrera has more.
Ola's bail hearing will be held today at 2:30 p.m. Quito local time. Bini's lawyer, Carlos Soria, said that he is confident that the justice system will finally decide to approve this bail. According to Bini's lawyers, there is no reason to be denied this bail, so they hope that the justice will prevail today. Also, in this context, it's important to say that the Pichincha Court of Justice ratified the preventive detention against Ola Bini, who is being accused by the General Attorney's System for the crime of attacks against Ecuador's information systems. This decision has been rejected by several organizations of free software developers who are asking that Ola Bini be free.
That was Denise Herrera from Quito. Mexican authorities have rescued 281 Central American asylum seekers in the state of Chiapas and arrested at least 10 human traffickers. The operation was carried out by the police in the city of Comitán de Domínguez. Police confiscated 4 cars and 5 trucks that were used to transport them to the U.S. The Institute of Migration transferred them to its local offices where they met consular officials. Authorities said 161 of the migrants came from Guatemala and the rest from Honduras and El Salvador. Pope Francis has sent a letter to Brazil's former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva asking him to continue its struggle for justice inside the prison. He said he knew Lula had endured heavy struggle recently, especially losing loved ones such as his wife Marisa Leticia, his brother and his grandson Arthur, only 7 years old. The Pope says he wants to show his spiritual closeness and wish him courage so he won't lose hope and continue to trust God. That at the end, good will triumph against evil, truth will overcome lies, and salvation will win against condemnation. Now to Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro praised the staff at the local committees for supply and production, also known as CLAP, for their dedication to ensuring the delivery of food to 6 million Venezuelans. This comes after continuous U.S. actions to block the work of this government program to deliver food to its citizens. President Maduro expressed his gratitude and called on the workers to show the world that no one can stop their work. During the first UN Habitat Assembly in Nairobi, Kenya, the United Nations has recognized Venezuela as a leader in housing rights. Authorities said the government's Venezuela housing mission is an example to be followed by all nations. Over 3,000 delegates are attending the 5-day event to discuss the adoption of new global norms and policies that will guide how cities and communities are planned, managed, and governed. St. Lucia and Cuba signed a health cooperation agreement to extend the time of the Cuban Medical Brigade that is currently in the island. Cuba's ambassador to St. Lucia says his country remains committed to helping the Caribbean nation.
The signing of the agreement is an important moment because it reflects the will of our governments to continue working together in such an important field like public health. By the means of this agreement, we are enhancing the ties of French cooperation between Cuba and St. Lucia, between our governments, between the Ministry of Health of Cuba and the Ministry of Health and Wellness of St. Lucia. We are very happy, we are proud to continue contributing from our humble capabilities to the development of St. Lucia.
St. Lucia's Health Minister, Mari Isaac, recognized Cuba's sterling support for public health development.
We have accomplished great strides through the help of the Cuban medical brigade that exists here, especially our eye care program. That has gone a long way. We have a well-established eye care program, and that is through the Cuban assistance that we get from the Cuban government.
Tributes are pouring in from around the Caribbean following the death of Jamaica's former Prime Minister, Edward Seaga. Seaga passed away on Tuesday on his 89th birthday in the United States, where he had been receiving treatment for cancer. He was the 5th Prime Minister of Jamaica, serving from 1980 to 1989, and was the leader of Jamaica's Labour Party up until 2005. The former Prime Minister is credited with building Jamaica's post-independence cultural and financial sectors. Seaga was also the last surviving framer of Jamaica's constitution. Here's a video of him speaking in his last election campaign in 2002.
Mr. Seaga's career reflects a man that appreciated the critical importance of the development of institutions and infrastructure, especially as you set out to build a new nation. He will forever be remembered for this clear commitment to building these institutions.
And Jamaica's Governor General Sir Patrick Allen has also expressed deep sorrow over Seaga's death. In a statement, he describes Seaga as a strategic thinker and a man of action, adding that he leaves a legacy of visionary leadership. And the University of the West Indies is expressing condolences to the family of the late Jamaican statesman who was also a distinguished fellow of the university. UWI Vice-Chancellor Professor Hilary Beckles says Seaga constituted a bridge between community and the campus, and that his presence and fellowship will be missed. More stories coming up. Stay with us.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. Latvian lawmakers have elected Egils Levits as the country's new president. Levits won the support of 61 lawmakers in the 100-seat parliament on Wednesday. He will serve 4 years, starting on July 8th, when President Raimons Vejonis and his term comes to an end. Levits served as a judge of the European Court of Human Rights from 1995 to 2004 and was first appointed as EU Court of Justice judge in 2004. Israeli authorities have scaled down on Gaza's fishing zone to 10 nautical miles. A statement by the Ministry of Defense said the decision is in response to the launching of balloons fitted with firebombs from the Gaza Strip. The decision comes just a few days after the fishing zone was extended to 15 nautical miles. Under the Oslo Accords signed in 1993, Israel is obligated to allow fishing up to 20 nautical miles to Palestine, but this has never been implemented. Organizations have condemned a U.S.-led summit to encourage investment in occupied Palestinian territories and have called it a treason. Palestinian organizations have said that the U.S. is looking to give Arab cover to the Israeli occupation of Palestine by hosting a summit with Arab states in Bahrain, scheduled for June 25th. A number of Arab countries are set to attend, including Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Critics describe the summit as a stab in the back of the Palestinian people and a violation of all the resolutions prohibiting Arab states from normalizing relations with Israel. In other news, Chinese technology giant Huawei has filed a new legal action against President Donald Trump's ban. The company's chief legal officer, Song Liping, said Huawei was heading to court to halt what he called illegal actions against the company by the U.S. government. Song further accused Trump's administration of using unproven allegations to put the Chinese giant out of business.
Just now, we filed a motion for summary judgment. By doing this, we hope that the court can issue a judgment in the fastest and most efficient way, declare restrictions on Huawei as unconstitutional, and stop enforcement of related sections.
And now we bring you a story that makes all of us proud. Telesur has won the National Journalism Prize in Mexico for its coverage of the migrant caravans last year. In a months-long series of stories, Telesur documented the journey of thousands of people from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador going through Mexico seeking to reach the U.S. Telesur's team of correspondents and camera persons provided unparalleled insight and understanding of the issue. They were also praised for their exclusive footage of migrants braving the rough waters of the Suchiate River in the border between Mexico and Guatemala as a police helicopter hovered above. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez applauded our team via Twitter. She praised the media house for broadcasting the truth to all corners of the world. And Venezuela's Vice President of Communications, Jorge Rodriguez, also congratulated Telesur on the accomplishment. He praised the women and men who fight for truth and life with the fierceness of love. And we'll continue reporting the harsh reality of the region and the sacrifices done by migrants to live in peace. With that, we end our news brief, but remember, there's more on our website, telesurenglish.net. And you can join us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.